It was late in the evening when the rain started falling softly over the quiet town. The streets were nearly empty, lights from small houses glowing faintly through the mist. A young woman named Lily was driving home after a long day at the hospital. She worked the evening shift, and though she was tired, she always enjoyed the peaceful drive home at night. The rain on her windshield and the sound of soft music made her feel calm after a long, tiring day. As she slowed down near an empty intersection, she suddenly thought she heard something, a faint, sharp sound like a cry. At first she ignored it, thinking it was just the wind or a cat in the distance. But as she rolled down her window, the sound came again, louder this time. It was the unmistakable cry of a baby. Lily froze for a second, listening carefully. The crying continued, weak and shaky, coming from somewhere near the side of the road. She felt her heart race. Who would leave a baby out here in the rain in the middle of the night? Without thinking twice, she turned off the car engine, grabbed her umbrella, and stepped out into the rain. The cold drops hit her face as she walked toward the sound. Her shoes sank slightly into the muddy ground near a small patch of trees by the sidewalk. She followed the cry until she saw something small lying near an old trash bin. Her breath caught. It was a baby, a tiny infant wrapped in a thin, wet blanket, trembling and crying softly. Lily dropped to her knees. "Oh my God," she whispered. She carefully lifted the baby into her arms. The child's skin was cold and its tiny fists were clenched tight. The baby couldn't have been more than a few days old. Her heart broke at the sight. She quickly wrapped her coat around the baby to keep it warm and hurried back to her car. She turned up the heater, trying to bring warmth back into the baby's little body. The baby cried a few more times, then slowly began to calm down in her arms. As she sat there holding the baby, she tried to think clearly. She was a nurse, so her first instinct was to get the baby to safety. She grabbed her phone and called the hospital. "This is Lily," she said quickly. "I found an abandoned baby near Elm Street. I'm bringing the baby in right now." She started the car and drove as fast as she could, her hands shaking slightly on the wheel. She kept glancing at the baby, who was now quiet, eyes half closed. "You're going to be okay," she whispered softly. "I promise." When she arrived at the hospital, she rushed through the emergency entrance. The nurses on duty recognized her and quickly took the baby. They placed it under a warm lamp and checked its heartbeat. Lily stood nearby, still soaked from the rain, watching anxiously. The doctor looked up and gave her a reassuring nod. "You did the right thing," he said. "The baby is cold and weak, but it's going to be okay." Lily finally let out a deep breath. She felt tears fill her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She stayed for hours, watching the medical team work, helping them where she could. Even though her shift was over, she couldn't bring herself to leave. When the baby was finally settled and resting, one of the nurses smiled and said, "He's a strong one. We'll keep him here for observation, but he'll make it." "He?" Lily asked softly. "Yes," the nurse said. "It's a boy." Lily couldn't stop staring at the baby. His tiny fingers curled and uncurled as if reaching out to hold something. She smiled for the first time that night. "Hey there, little one," she whispered. "You're safe now." By morning, the hospital was buzzing with news of what happened. People were shocked that someone could abandon a baby like that, but they also praised the mystery nurse who had found him. Reporters began calling the hospital asking for interviews, but Lily didn't want attention. She just wanted to make sure the baby was okay. Over the next few days, Lily visited the baby every chance she got. She brought him small blankets and tiny socks from the hospital store. The staff started calling him Baby Noah until his real name or family could be found. Lily liked the name. It suited him, strong and gentle. Whenever she held him, he seemed calmer, like he knew her voice. Sometimes she talked to him softly, telling him about the stars, the sound of rain, or how brave he had been. She didn't know why she felt so attached to him. Maybe because she had found him all alone in the dark, or maybe because something about his eyes reminded her of hope. But as the days went by, something strange started happening. One afternoon, when Lily went to check on him, she found a small envelope on the chair next to his crib. It was plain white with no name written on it. She opened it thinking it was hospital paperwork, but inside there was only one short message written in uneven letters. "Stay away from the baby." Her stomach dropped. She looked around, but no one seemed to notice anything unusual. She showed the note to her supervisor, who immediately called security. They reviewed the hallway cameras, but no one had entered the room except hospital staff. The mystery made everyone uneasy, especially Lily. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the note. Who would write something like that and why? She tried to convince herself it was just a cruel joke, maybe from someone who saw the story on the news. But deep down, she felt something wasn't right. Still, she couldn't stay away. Every day after work, she stopped by to check on baby Noah. She loved seeing him grow stronger. He was starting to smile now, his cheeks fuller, his eyes brighter. The doctor said he was doing great. One evening, as she was leaving the hospital parking lot, she noticed a black car parked a few spaces away. The headlights were off, but she could feel someone inside watching her. She paused for a moment, then brushed it off as her imagination. It had been a long week and she was exhausted, but the next day she got another note, this time slipped into her locker. It said, "You shouldn't have found him." Her hands trembled as she read it. The letters were the same. She showed it to the police officer who had been handling the baby's case. He told her not to worry, that they would look into it, but she could tell he didn't take it too seriously. The baby's story had already reached local news. People from across the town were sending gifts and donations to the hospital, wanting to help. Some even wrote letters to Lily, thanking her for her kindness. Still, the strange notes and the feeling of being watched began to bother her more and more. A few days later, the police came with an update. They had run DNA tests to see if they could find any relatives. The results weren't ready yet, but they assured her the baby would stay safe under hospital care. That night, as Lily stood by baby Noah's crib, she looked at him sleeping peacefully and felt a strange sense of protectiveness. She whispered, "Whoever you are, little one, you're not alone anymore." When she left the hospital, the rain started again, soft and cold, just like the night she had found him. She drove slowly, lost in thought. She didn't know that her life had already changed forever. What she thought was just an act of kindness was the beginning of something much bigger, a story filled with secrets, love and heartbreak that would soon capture the attention of millions. For now, though, all she knew was that she had saved a baby, and in some strange way that baby had saved her too. The loneliness she used to feel after long shifts was gone. The quiet drives home didn't feel so empty anymore. Every time she thought of baby Noah's tiny smile, she felt a warmth inside her heart that reminded her why she became a nurse in the first place, to care for those who couldn't care for themselves, but she couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling that followed her everywhere now. The notes, the car, the silence in the hallways, it all felt connected. She didn't want to believe it, but something told her the baby's past wasn't simple. As she parked her car in front of her small apartment, she looked back at the rain-soaked streets and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow will be better." She didn't know that tomorrow would bring answers she wasn't ready to hear, and the truth about that crying baby would change everything she thought she knew about kindness, fate, and the power of one small choice on a rainy night. The next morning came quietly. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets damp and shining under the soft morning light. Lily woke up early even though she had barely slept. Her mind kept returning to the same thoughts. The baby, the strange notes, and that dark car she saw the night before. Something about it didn't feel right, but she couldn't explain why. She got dressed quickly and made her way to the hospital. On her way, she stopped at a small bakery to buy some warm bread for the nurses who worked the night shift. She had done that a few times before, but today she had another reason. She wanted to see baby Noah as soon as possible, just to make sure everything was fine. When she entered the hospital nursery, she saw the baby sleeping peacefully in his little crib. His tiny chest moved up and down slowly, his face calm and soft. The sight made her smile. One of the nurses whispered, "He's doing great today. Ate well, slept well. You'd never think he went through something like that?" Lily nodded, brushing her fingers gently across the blanket. "He's strong," she said softly. "He's a little fighter." The police had visited the hospital that morning too. They told the staff they were still trying to track down the baby's family but hadn't found any leads yet. There were no fingerprints, no missing person reports matching his age, and no witnesses who had seen anything the night Lily found him. A few reporters were waiting outside the hospital, hoping to speak with Lily. She didn't want to talk to them, but one of them shouted, "Lily, how does it feel to be called a hero?" She paused for a moment before answering politely, "I'm no hero. I just did what anyone should do." Then she walked inside quickly, avoiding the cameras. Inside, one of her co-workers teased her gently, "You're on the front page today. The whole town's talking about you." Lily laughed softly. "I didn't mean for that to happen." I just want him to be safe. Over the next few days, more people came forward with gifts. Someone sent a box of baby clothes, another person sent toys. A local store even offered free supplies for the hospital's children's ward. Everyone seemed touched by the story of the baby who had been found in the rain, and the kind nurse who saved him. But behind the warm smiles and kind words, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching. She kept seeing the same black car parked near the hospital entrance. Sometimes it was there early in the morning, other times late at night. When she tried to get closer, it always drove away slowly before she could see who was inside. She mentioned it to the hospital security guard, who promised to keep an eye out, but there was little he could do without more proof. That evening, Lily sat by baby Noah's crib again. He was awake, staring up at the mobile hanging above him. The soft tune of the spinning stars filled the quiet room. She smiled and whispered, "You like that sound, don't you?" His small hand reached toward her finger and she held it gently. She stayed longer than usual that night. The air outside had grown colder, and a light fog had started to creep across the streets. Before leaving, she made sure the baby was wrapped tightly and kissed the top of his tiny hand. "Sleep well, little one," she said softly. "You're safe here." But just as she was about to leave, one of the hospital staff members approached her. "Lily," the woman said quietly, "a man came by earlier asking about the baby." Lily frowned. "Who was he?" "I don't know. He didn't give a name. He just said he needed to know if the baby was okay. He didn't look like a reporter, though. More like nervous. I told him we couldn't share information." A chill ran down Lily's spine. "Did he say anything else?" The woman shook her head. "No, but he left quickly when I asked him for ID." That night, Lily couldn't stop thinking about it. Was he connected to the baby somehow? A family member, maybe? Or something else entirely? The question circled in her mind like a storm. The next morning, the police returned. They had results from the DNA test. "We've matched the baby's DNA to someone," the officer said. "We're still confirming details, but this could change everything." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "You mean you found his family?" The officer nodded slowly. "Possibly, but we need to be sure before we contact them." That day felt longer than any other. Every time someone called her name, she hoped it was news about the baby. Finally, just before her shift ended, the officer came back. His expression was serious. "We've confirmed it," he said. "The baby's DNA matches with a woman named Laura Hensley. She was reported missing 3 months ago." Lily's eyes widened. "Missing?" The officer nodded. "Yes. Laura was the daughter of Richard Hensley, a well-known businessman in the city. She disappeared suddenly and her family filed a report. The strange part is that she was pregnant when she went missing." Lily felt her stomach twist. "So this baby could be hers?" "That's right," the officer said. "We're trying to contact the family now." The news spread quickly. Reporters filled the hospital lobby again, wanting every detail. The baby who had been abandoned was now connected to one of the most powerful families in the area. The public was shocked, and the story grew even bigger. Later that evening, Richard Hensley himself came to the hospital. He was tall, with silver hair and a calm but distant face. Cameras followed him as he walked in, escorted by 2 men. When he saw the baby, his eyes softened for a moment. "This is my grandson?" he asked quietly. Lily nodded, watching him carefully. He turned to her and said, "You saved him. I owe you more than I can ever repay." She smiled politely. "I just did what anyone would do." But even as she spoke, she noticed something strange in his eyes. It wasn't just sadness, it was something heavier, something hidden. Over the next few days, Lily learned more about the family from the news. Richard Hensley's daughter, Laura, had been found dead weeks after she disappeared. The police had called it a suicide, though many people doubted it. Her friends had claimed she was afraid of something before she vanished. Lily couldn't stop thinking about that. If the baby was hers, then who had left him by the roadside? Why would anyone do that? And who had sent those notes telling her to stay away? She tried to push those thoughts away, focusing on her work, but they stayed with her everywhere she went. A few nights later, as she was leaving the hospital, she noticed the black car again. This time it was parked right across from the entrance. The driver's window was slightly down, and she could see a man's outline inside. She stood still, her heart pounding. Then the car engine started and it drove off slowly into the darkness. That night, when she got home, she found an envelope slipped under her door. She froze. It looked exactly like the first two. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, written in the same uneven handwriting, were the words, "You don't understand what you've found." Lily sat on the couch, the note trembling in her hands. She didn't know whether to be scared or angry. She wanted to believe the police could handle it, but something deep inside told her this wasn't just about an abandoned baby anymore. She looked at the photo she had taken earlier of baby Noah, his bright eyes, his soft smile. She whispered to herself, "I'll keep you safe. I don't care what it takes." The next day, she handed the new note to the detective in charge of the case. He frowned and said, "Whoever's doing this wants to scare you. Be careful, Lily. And if you see anything unusual, call me immediately." She nodded. "I will." But she knew things were already far from normal. Everywhere she went, she felt eyes following her. Every time the phone rang, her heart jumped. Yet, no matter how uneasy she felt, she couldn't stay away from the baby. Each time she saw him, she felt calm again. He giggled when she made faces, and his small hands reached up like he recognized her. It reminded her why she couldn't walk away, not until she knew he was safe. What she didn't know was that the story was about to take an even darker turn. The truth about the baby's family, about Laura, and about the man who had come to the hospital was far more complicated than anyone imagined. And while the world was praising Lily as a hero, someone in the shadows was watching, waiting for the right moment to make her regret ever stopping that night in the rain. The next few days at the hospital felt heavier than before. Reporters still camped outside the main doors, and the staff whispered every time Richard Hensley's name came up. Everyone wanted to know more about the mystery baby and how he was connected to the powerful Hensley family. Lily tried to stay focused on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to the strange things that had been happening. The notes, the car, and the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. Every time she looked at baby Noah, she felt both peace and worry. He was innocent, but somehow his small life had already become part of something much bigger than anyone could see. One morning, while Lily was checking on him, the doctor walked in with a serious look. "Lily," he said quietly, "Mr. Hensley has requested to transfer the baby to a private facility under his care." Lily froze. "Transfer him, but why? He's recovering perfectly here," the doctor sighed. "He says it's for security reasons. He wants full medical control and privacy. The police approved it since he's legally the baby's family now." Lily's chest tightened. "When is this happening?" "This afternoon." She stared at the baby, who was smiling softly in his sleep. The thought of him leaving made her heart ache. She knew it was the right thing legally, but something deep down told her this wasn't just a normal transfer. When Richard arrived, the hospital staff greeted him politely. He was dressed sharply, his expression calm but unreadable. "Nurse Lily," he said, "I want to thank you again for what you did. You saved my grandson's life. You'll always have my gratitude." Lily forced a smile. "I'm just glad he's safe." He nodded slightly, then turned to his assistant and said, "Make sure everything is prepared." As they carried the baby out in a small carrier, Lily felt tears fill her eyes. She wanted to say goodbye, but words wouldn't come out. She only whispered softly, "Be safe, little one." When the car drove away, she stood by the window, feeling a strange emptiness. The nursery felt quieter than ever. That night, Lily went home, trying to convince herself she was just being emotional. But as she reached her apartment door, she noticed something unusual. A small brown envelope lying on the doormat. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around, but the hallway was empty. She slowly bent down, picked it up, and opened it. Inside was a single photo. It was a picture of her standing by the hospital window earlier that day, watching the baby being taken away. Written on the back in the same uneven handwriting were the words, "You shouldn't have let him go." Her hands trembled. Someone had been watching her closely, closer than she ever realized. She sat on her couch holding the photo, trying to understand what was happening. Was someone trying to warn her or threaten her? Either way, she knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. She called the detective who had been handling the case. When he arrived, she showed him the photo. He looked concerned. "This isn't just some prank," he said. "It means whoever's doing this knows where you live. You need to be careful." "Do you think it has something to do with the Hensleys?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. "It's possible. That family has a lot of history, some good, some not so good. But we can't jump to conclusions. After he left, Lily locked every door and window, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there. The shadows outside her window seemed to move every time she glanced up. She sat awake most of the night, thinking about the baby and wondering if he was safe. The next morning, she decided to take a walk to clear her mind. She stopped by a small cafe near the hospital, ordered coffee, and sat by the window. That's when she saw him, the same man she had noticed near the hospital parking lot a few nights ago. He was sitting across the street reading a newspaper, but she recognized his face. He wasn't reading. He was watching her. Her pulse quickened. She pretended not to notice, paid for her coffee, and walked quickly toward the police station. The man didn't follow her, but she knew she had to tell someone. When she explained everything to the detective, he promised they'd increase patrols around her home and workplace. Days passed, but things only got stranger. Someone called her at night, breathing on the line but saying nothing. Sometimes the calls came at 2 or 3 in the morning. She stopped answering after the third time, but it left her restless. Then one afternoon, the detective came to see her again, holding a file in his hand. "Lily," he said, "we've been digging deeper into the Hensley case. There's something you need to know." She sat down slowly. "What is it?" "The daughter, Laura Hensley. The official report said suicide, but the evidence never quite fit. There were signs she'd been planning to leave home for good. And there's more. She filed a restraining order a week before she disappeared." Lily's eyes widened. "Against who?" The detective looked hesitant. "Someone in her family. The documents were sealed, but my source believes it was against her own father." Lily's breath caught. Her father? But he seemed so kind when he came to the hospital. The detective nodded. "That's what makes it complicated. He's a respected man, but his business dealings are questionable. And now after you found her baby, things don't add up. If she was running away, someone must have found her. Maybe the baby survived whatever happened that night." Lily sat in silence, her heart pounding. Everything started to make a terrible kind of sense. The abandoned baby, the warnings, the man watching her, it was all connected. The detective continued. "We've requested another interview with Mr. Hensley, but he's refusing to cooperate. He says everything's being handled privately." That night, Lily couldn't stop replaying everything in her head. She knew she shouldn't get involved any further, but her conscience wouldn't let her walk away. That baby wasn't just any child. He was the last piece of a mystery that no one seemed to want solved. A few days later, she received another envelope. This time it wasn't left at her home. It was waiting on her car dashboard. She opened it carefully, her hands shaking. Inside was a note that said, "If you want the truth, come to the old greenhouse on Ridgeway Street. Tonight, come alone." Every instinct told her it was dangerous, but her heart told her she had to go. When night fell, she drove slowly to Ridgeway Street, a quiet road near the outskirts of town. The old greenhouse stood at the end of a dirt path, half covered in vines and surrounded by tall weeds. She parked nearby, turned off her headlights, and stepped out carefully. The air was cold, and the moon cast a pale light across the broken glass roof. Inside, it smelled of damp soil and old leaves. Her footsteps echoed as she called softly, "Hello? Is anyone here?" A shadow moved near the far wall. Lily froze. Then a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come." Her heart raced. The man stepped forward. It was the same one she'd seen near the hospital. His face was tired and his clothes were worn. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I was Laura's friend," he said quietly. "She trusted me before she disappeared." Lily swallowed hard. "Then tell me what happened. Why was the baby left like that?" He hesitated. She was trying to escape. She found out something terrible about her father's business. She was scared for her baby. She asked me to help her leave, but someone found her first. I was too late. Lily felt her chest tighten. "So he?" The man nodded slowly. "He didn't want the world to know. The baby was supposed to disappear too, but someone couldn't go through with it. They left him where you found him. You were never supposed to see that child alive." Lily's breath caught. Everything finally made sense. The notes, the threats, the watching eyes, it was all to keep her quiet. The man stepped closer and said, "You need to be careful. He knows who you are now. He's not done covering his tracks." Before she could ask another question, she heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. Headlights flashed through the broken glass, and the man whispered urgently, "Go. Don't look back." Lily ran out of the greenhouse, her heart pounding so fast she could barely breathe. She didn't stop until she reached her car. As she drove away, she looked in the rearview mirror and saw another car's headlights in the distance, following her. She didn't know what the man's fate was or what would happen next. But one thing was clear. The truth behind that crying baby was darker and deeper than she could ever have imagined. And now she was part of it. As the city lights came into view, she whispered to herself, "I won't let him get away with this. Not after what he did." She didn't know how, but she knew she would find a way to protect the truth. And the baby who had changed everything. Lily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the broken greenhouse, the man's worried face, and those headlights flashing through the glass. Her heart still raced whenever she remembered the last words he had said. "He knows who you are now." She didn't know what scared her more, the idea that someone was following her or the truth that a man powerful enough to silence the truth was out there, pretending to be grateful. The next morning, she got ready for work, but she kept checking outside her window. The same black car was parked across the street again. It didn't move when she left her apartment. It just sat there quietly, like a shadow watching her. At the hospital, things seemed normal, but she could feel the tension in the air. People were whispering about new developments in the Hensley case. The police were still investigating the late daughter's death, but the family had gone silent. The baby was now under private care, away from everyone's eyes. Lily wanted to stay away from the mess, but her heart wouldn't let her. She couldn't forget the look on that baby's face or the fear in the man's voice who had tried to warn her. Every instinct she had told her something terrible was being hidden. During her lunch break, she sat alone in the hospital garden, thinking. The wind was soft, the air calm, but her mind was racing. She pulled out her phone and opened her messages. There were 3 new ones, all from an unknown number. Each message was short. "Stop asking questions. Walk away while you still can. This isn't your fight." Her fingers trembled. She looked around quickly, but no one seemed to be watching. It was clear someone was trying to keep her silent. That evening, she went to the detective's office again. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. When she told him about the greenhouse and the man she had met, his eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't have gone there alone," he said. "You could have been hurt." "I needed answers," Lily said. "He told me things about Laura, things that make sense." She was scared of her father. She wanted to leave. "He was hiding something," the detective sighed. "We've been digging into the family's history. There are some strange financial transfers before her death. Money sent to unknown accounts. But without solid proof, we can't accuse anyone. And now that man you met is missing. No one's seen him since last night." Lily's heart sank. "Missing?" He nodded. "His apartment was empty. His phone's off. It's like he vanished." She looked away, feeling guilt wash over her. "He tried to help me," she whispered. "He was the only one who told me the truth." The detective leaned forward. "Lily, listen. You've already done more than most people would. Let us handle it now. You're not safe if you keep digging." She nodded slowly, but in her heart she knew she couldn't stop. She had come too far. That night, when she returned home, she noticed her apartment door wasn't locked. She was sure she had locked it in the morning. Her stomach twisted. She opened the door slowly, flipping the light switch on. Everything looked normal, except for the small box placed on her kitchen table. There was no note, no address. Just a plain brown box tied with string. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a flash drive. Nothing else. Lily turned on her laptop, inserted the drive, and waited. A single video file appeared titled "For You." She clicked play. The video was shaky, as if filmed in secret. It showed a woman, Laura, sitting in a small room. She looked frightened but determined. "If you're seeing this," Laura said in a trembling voice, "then something happened to me. My baby is innocent. He doesn't deserve what they're planning. Please protect him." The screen flickered, then cut to black. Lily stared at the laptop, frozen. Her eyes filled with tears. This was proof. Proof that Laura hadn't taken her own life. She had known she was in danger. But who sent this to her? And how did they know to send it now? She quickly copied the video and took the flash drive straight to the detective. When he saw it, his eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" "It was left in my apartment," she said. He played it again carefully, studying every frame. "This changes everything," he said quietly. This isn't just a family issue anymore. This is criminal. But before he could continue, his phone buzzed. He answered, then frowned. The video's already leaked, he said. Someone uploaded it anonymously. It's all over the internet. Within hours, the story exploded everywhere. News channels replayed the clip again and again. The public was shocked. People started questioning the Hensley family story. How could a woman who feared for her child suddenly end her own life? Richard Hensley released a statement saying the video was fake, a cruel attempt to damage his reputation. But not everyone believed him. Protests started forming outside his company's headquarters. Reporters camped outside his mansion. Lily watched the chaos unfold from her small apartment, her phone buzzing nonstop. Some people called her brave. Others said she should have stayed quiet. She ignored all of it. The only thing that mattered now was that Laura's voice had been heard. 2 nights later, the detective called her again. His voice was low and serious. "Lily, we found something," he said. "Hidden documents, transfers, and surveillance records. It proves Laura was planning to escape with her baby. She even bought a ticket under another name, but someone intercepted her before she could leave." "Do you think her father was behind it?" she asked. He hesitated. "We can't confirm yet, but it's clear he knew more than he admitted." Before they hung up, he said, "Be careful. Now that the story's out, some people will see you as a threat." That warning came true sooner than she expected. The next morning, when Lily got into her car, she noticed her windshield had been cracked, not by accident, but deliberately. There was a note tucked under the wiper, "Stop or you'll regret it." She took a deep breath, trying not to panic. She called the detective again, who promised to send someone to check on her. But deep inside, Lily had made her choice. She wasn't backing down. She took a leave from the hospital and began gathering everything she knew: copies of the video, police reports, and photos. She planned to hand them directly to a journalist she trusted, one who wasn't afraid to tell the truth. When she met the reporter, a kind woman with calm eyes, she said softly, "The world deserves to know who she really was, and why she died." The reporter agreed and promised to protect her identity. Within days, a full story went public: the hidden life of Laura Hensley, the business secrets, and the mystery of the baby who had survived. The world was watching again, and this time it wasn't just sympathy. It was outrage. The authorities reopened the case officially. Richard Hensley was questioned, and several of his associates were taken into custody. The investigation revealed years of hidden corruption and cover-ups. But through it all, Lily stayed quiet. She didn't want fame or attention. She just wanted justice for Laura and safety for the baby. One afternoon, she received a call from a woman she didn't recognize. "Lily," the voice said softly, "I'm Laura's cousin. The baby is safe with me now. I just wanted you to know." He's smiling again. Tears rolled down Lily's cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, for the first time in months, she slept peacefully. The world finally knew the truth, and the baby she had saved was finally safe. But even in her calm, she couldn't help but feel a small ache in her heart, the ache of saying goodbye. The next morning, she walked to the park near her apartment. The sun was warm and the sky was clear. She sat on a bench, listening to the laughter of children playing nearby. For a moment, she thought about that rainy night when she first heard the baby cry, how one small decision had changed everything, not just for the child, but for her too. She whispered softly, "You were meant to be found." As she looked at the sunlight filtering through the trees, she realized something. Sometimes fate doesn't shout or demand attention. Sometimes it whispers quietly in the sound of a baby's cry, asking for someone to listen. And when you do, it changes everything. Weeks passed quietly after the investigation ended. The news channels had moved on to new stories. The crowds outside the Hensley mansion had disappeared, and the world seemed to return to its normal rhythm. But for Lily, nothing really felt normal anymore. Her life had changed in ways she never expected. Sometimes she would still wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of a baby's cry in her dreams. She would sit up, heart racing, until she remembered that Noah was safe now, living far away, surrounded by love and care. She missed him deeply, even though she tried to tell herself that letting him go was the right thing. Her small apartment felt empty without his tiny sounds. The mornings were quieter, and the evenings stretched endlessly. She went back to work at the hospital, But even there, people looked at her differently now. Some smiled at her, proud of what she had done. Others whispered behind her back, wondering how she had ended up in the middle of such a storm. But Lily didn't care about what people said. She cared about what she had promised, to protect that baby no matter what. And in her heart, she had kept that promise. One afternoon, while she was finishing her shift, she found a small envelope placed inside her locker. There was no name on it. She opened it slowly, expecting another warning or some old reminder of the fear she had faced months ago. But inside was a photograph. It was Noah. He was sitting on a blanket in a sunny garden, smiling up at the camera. He looked healthy, his cheeks round and pink, his tiny hands reaching for something just outside the frame. On the back of the photo, in neat handwriting, it said, "He's learning to say your name." Lily held the photo close to her chest, tears slipping quietly down her face. For a long time, she just stood there, unable to move, her heart heavy and full all at once. That picture said everything she needed to know. He was safe, he was loved, and he was happy. That night, she went home and placed the photo on her bedside table. She sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. It struck her how strange life could be. A random moment, when a cry in the dark, had led her into something so big, so painful, yet so full of meaning. She smiled through her tears. "You're going to grow up strong," she whispered softly, imagining him laughing somewhere far away. "And you'll never know how scared I was that night. You'll only know that someone found you and loved you enough to fight for you." As the days turned into weeks, the trial began. The evidence collected by the detectives and journalists was overwhelming. Hidden documents, financial transfers, and messages proved that Laura's death had been staged to hide the truth. Several people in Richard Hensley's company were arrested, and the family empire crumbled under public outrage. When Richard himself was brought to court, Lily was called to testify. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. Standing there, facing the man whose lies had caused so much pain, she felt both angry and calm. He looked older now, tired and broken. The arrogance that once lived in his eyes was gone. As the lawyers asked her questions, Lily told the truth. Not with hate, but with honesty. "I found the baby by chance," she said softly. "I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help. I didn't want fame, I didn't want trouble. I only wanted to keep him safe. But what I learned later broke my heart, that a mother's last wish was for her child to live in peace, and that wish almost died with her." Her words filled the courtroom with silence. Some people cried quietly. Even the judge looked moved. When she left the stand, she felt lighter. It was as if she had finally released something she had been holding inside for months. The case ended with justice served. The truth about Laura's death was officially recognized, and the people responsible were sent to prison. Richard Hensley's name became a warning of what power and greed could do when left unchecked. But more importantly, Laura's story became a symbol of courage and love. News outlets called Lily a hero again, but she avoided interviews. She didn't want cameras or fame. She only wanted peace. A few months later, she decided to take a small break from the city. She drove out to a quiet coastal town, where the air smelled of salt and the waves crashed gently against the shore. It was the kind of place where no one knew her name. Every morning, she would walk by the beach with a cup of coffee, watching children build sandcastles and chase the tide. Sometimes she imagined Noah among them, laughing, his small hands covered in sand. She started volunteering at a small local clinic. The work reminded her why she became a nurse in the first place. Not for recognition, but for care. Helping people, healing them, listening to their stories. It gave her comfort and purpose again. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, a little girl ran up to her and handed her a seashell. "You look sad," the girl said innocently. "This will make you smile." Lily knelt down, smiling gently. "Thank you," she said. "It's beautiful." The child grinned and ran back to her family. Lily held the shell up to her ear and listened to the soft whisper of the sea. In that moment, she realized that sometimes healing doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from accepting, from understanding that even pain can lead to something beautiful. A few weeks later, she received another letter, this time from the same cousin who had sent her Noah's photo. It was short and simple. "He's taking his first steps. He laughs every morning. When he sees the ocean, he claps his hands. I thought you'd like to know. Lily smiled as she read it. She folded the letter carefully and placed it inside the same box that held the photo. Then she wrote a small note in return, just a few words. Tell him I'm proud of him. That night she sat on the beach again, watching the stars appear one by one. The sound of the waves was steady and calming. She thought about everything. The night she found the baby, the letters, the danger, the courtroom, and finally, the peace that had come after all the storms. She understood something important then. Sometimes the world tests people not because they are weak, but because they are meant to be strong for someone else. She hadn't just saved a baby. She had saved a story, a truth, and a hope that might have been lost forever. And though it had cost her tears and sleepless nights, she wouldn't have changed a thing. Before leaving the beach, she whispered softly into the wind, You were my miracle. Years later, Lily continued her quiet work at the clinic. Life became simple again. She grew a small garden behind her house filled with white lilies and sunflowers. Every morning she watered them while thinking about how things grow. Slowly, patiently, beautifully, just like people after pain. One morning, as she was tending to her flowers, she heard the mail slot click. A new envelope slid through. She wiped her hands on her apron and picked it up. It was from the same cousin again, but this time there was a second envelope inside, smaller, marked with childish handwriting. She opened it and smiled. It was a drawing made with crayons, a stick figure of a woman holding hands with a little boy. Above it, in crooked letters, it said, Thank you for finding me. Lily pressed the drawing to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't need anything more than that. Not money, not fame, not recognition. That one drawing meant the world. The baby she had found that rainy night had grown, lived and laughed, and he remembered her, even if only through stories told to him by others. Lily looked up at the sky, where the sun was breaking through the morning clouds, and whispered with a smile, You're welcome, my little one. And as she stood there surrounded by her flowers, the wind blowing softly around her, she finally felt peace, the kind of peace that comes from knowing you've done something good, even if no one else ever truly understands how much it cost you. Because sometimes, the most beautiful endings aren't the loudest or the most celebrated. They are quiet moments, like a small hand-drawn thank you, a whisper in the wind, and a heart that finally learns how to rest. The morning sun slipped through the curtains, soft and golden, touching the edges of Lily's small living room. Years had passed since that rainy night when she had found the crying baby. But even now, sometimes she could still hear that faint sound in her mind, a reminder of the moment everything in her life had changed. Life had become calm and peaceful. Her little cottage by the sea was surrounded by flowers that bloomed all year round, and every morning, she would walk barefoot on the sand, feeling the cool waves touch her feet. The town she lived in was quiet, full of kind faces who knew her simply as Nurse Lily, the woman who always helped others and never asked for anything in return. Yet, behind her gentle smile lived a lifetime of memories. Some days she would sit by the window with a cup of tea, holding the seashell Noah had given her years ago. She would listen to its soft hum, imagining it carried the sound of the ocean, or maybe the echoes of a little boy's laughter. Noah was no longer a child. Time had flown faster than she could believe. He had grown into a young man, kind-hearted and full of light, just like his mother. Every letter he sent filled her heart with pride. He often told her about his dreams, that he wanted to help people, to make a difference, to bring hope to those who had none. He had told her once, You showed me that kindness is stronger than anything. I want to live like that. Those words stayed with her forever. One evening, as the sky turned pink and gold, Lily sat by the beach with her journal open. She had started writing down her memories, not for fame or attention, but because she wanted the truth to live on after her. Her handwriting was slow but steady as she wrote about that night. The rain, the crying baby, the fear, the courage, and everything that followed. Each word felt like a piece of her heart finding rest. She didn't realize that Noah was writing his own story too. He was now in his final year of medical school, and for his final project he wanted to share something personal. His professor had told the class to write about the moment that defined who they were, and Noah knew exactly what that was. He started his story with simple words. I was found by love before I even knew what love was. He wrote about the woman who had saved him, how she had risked everything for a child she didn't even know. He wrote about her strength, her kindness, and her endless courage. When he submitted it, he didn't expect it to go beyond the classroom. But a few weeks later, his professor sent it to a national writing contest. The story spread online, shared thousands of times. People from all over the world commented, many saying it restored their faith in humanity. One day, Lily received a phone call. The voice on the other end was warm and familiar. "It's me, Noah," he said. "I need to tell you something." She smiled. "What is it, dear?" He laughed softly. "I think the world finally knows about you. They published my story. Everyone's reading it. They're calling you a hero." Lily laughed gently, shaking her head. "Oh, Noah, I'm no hero. I just listened when I heard someone crying." But that night, as she sat quietly by the sea, she felt something different. Not pride, not attention, but peace. She had never wanted recognition, but knowing that the story of that baby and of love that never asked for anything in return was touching hearts again made her smile. A month later, Noah came to visit. It had been years since their last meeting. When Lily saw him step out of the car, tall and confident, her eyes filled with tears, he rushed to her and hugged her tightly. "I missed you," he said. "I missed you too," she whispered, holding him close. They sat together in her garden, where the flowers danced with the breeze. He told her about his studies, his plans, and how he wanted to work in children's hospitals. "I want to help babies who don't have anyone," he said softly. "Like I once didn't," Lily smiled, her eyes glistening. "You'll be wonderful at it. You already have what it takes, a good heart." Later that evening, as they watched the sunset together, Noah turned to her. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Finding me that night, even with everything that happened after?" She looked at him for a long moment, the waves whispering behind them. "No," she said, "not for a single second. Because that night didn't just change your life. It saved mine too." He frowned slightly, not understanding. Lily continued. "Before that night I was just living, working, surviving, passing each day without really feeling it. But when I found you, I learned what it meant to love without expecting anything. You gave my life purpose, Noah. You gave it meaning." He looked down, blinking away the emotion in his eyes. "You gave me everything," he whispered. As night fell, they sat quietly, the stars beginning to appear one by one. There was no need for words. The silence between them was full of gratitude and love. Over the next few years, Noah finished his studies and started working in a hospital. He often called Lily, telling her about the babies he helped, the families he comforted, and the small miracles he witnessed every day. She listened with pride, knowing her little boy, the one she once found crying in the dark, had grown into the kind of man the world needed more of. But time, as always, kept moving. Lily grew older, her steps slower, her hair silver. Yet her eyes still held that same warmth, that same spark of kindness. One winter evening, she wasn't feeling well. She lay in bed, weak but peaceful, watching the ocean from her window. The air outside was cold, and the wind carried the sound of waves. Noah arrived as quickly as he could when he heard. He rushed into her room, holding her hand tightly. She smiled faintly. "You came." "Of course," he said softly, his voice breaking. "You think I'd let you face this alone?" She chuckled gently, her eyes shining. "You've grown into such a good man. Your mother would be proud." "I'm proud." He wiped away his tears, holding her hand against his cheek. "I'm who I am because of you." She looked at him lovingly. "Promise me something. Anything." "Keep listening," she whispered. "The world is full of cries, when some loud, some quiet. You'll hear them. And when you do, don't walk away." He nodded, tears falling silently. "I promise." Lily smiled one last time, her hand still resting in his. Outside, the waves continued to move, calm and endless.